Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Committee of Adjustment meeting on February 18th. I'll now call the meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. Before we begin, can I look to Councillor Strachan to read the land acknowledgement, please?
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Great. Thank you very much. Next is the approval of minutes. The minutes of October 15th was the last time we had a Committee of Adjustment, or maybe it wasn't the last time, but anyways, it's the minutes that we're looking to approve. So I'm looking for a mover. Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan, and a seconder. Surprise. Okay. So the recommendation is the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes for October 15th are approved and presented. Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest, which is a declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof for any agenda items in this meeting this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing. It's an application for a minor variance, PD 2026-008A-01-26 for 871 Render Road. So this is legislated text that I have to get through. I've always wanted it to be set to music so I could sing it, but here we go. The Committee of Adjustment will now hold a public meeting to consider an application number A-01-26 for Jesse Jones on behalf of Paul and Kayla Chapman on the lands located at 871 Render Road to allow construction of a dwelling on an unopened road allowance as a condition of consent. This hearing is your opportunity to provide any feedback on this application, and the committee welcomes any questions and comments you might have. We encourage you to do so at this public hearing, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public's ability to voice objections later in the process may be limited if a written or oral comment is not submitted. Kira Vellinger, our Secretary Treasurer, will keep a record summary of this meeting. Any persons who wish to receive notice of the committee's decision concerning this matter are asked to speak with Kira Vellinger, Secretary Treasurer, following this hearing, or provide your contact information on the sign-in sheet at the entrance. Are there people here for this public meeting? If so, can you acknowledge? Thank you very much. Yeah. No, but you're here and we acknowledge you. Thank you. I'll now invite Director of Planning and Development, Amy Martin, to introduce the application for 871 Render Road. Thank you, Director Martin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If we can just go to the next slide. So the, one more slide, one more click back. There we go. Technology is temperamental this evening. That's okay. So the request before the Committee of Adjustment this evening is to seek relief from our comprehensive zoning bylaw, specifically section 6.14, as it relates to having frontage on a street. And this would permit for for a severance to move forward, as well as to permit the construction of a single detached dwelling. If we go to the next slide, we'll provide context as to where the property is located. So the property is located on an open and unmaintained portion of Render Road. As you can see on the map, it also loops down towards Hunter Lane. Again, that's not maintained by the municipality. There's access and development that is pre-existing, has already occurred within the area along this unmaintained portion of the road allowance. Next slide, please. So the official plan policy for the property is rural, which does permit residential severances. Next slide, please. And the zoning of the property is also rural. If we go to the next slide. So the application comes before us this evening as it originally started as a severance proposal. So there's an existing house on the property that was constructed a few years ago, and there's a development agreement tied to the parent parcel that would allow for access. The creation of a new property to permit the construction of a new dwelling establishes the principle of new development, and the agreement wouldn't apply to that new portion on that new parcel. But that at the same time, the parcel doesn't get to enjoy that agreement where it establishes a form of access. So in order for new development to be established in regards to frontage, we do need to provide a variance to the property to allow for the construction of that single detached dwelling without having formal frontage on an open and maintained road as required by the zoning bylaw. If we go to the next slide. So these are some details that I've provided. So the property is on rural. The severance application was initially approved in 2024. There is a requirement of consent for a condition in regards to a road access agreement that is coming forward to council at the March 3rd council meeting. So that would help fulfill the condition of severance. At this time, we're not asking to add it as a condition of the minor variance because it's already conditioned in another development process. And as mentioned, there are existing residences along this road, and it will be continued to be accessed on that unmaintained portion of Render Road. Next slide, please. We can go to the next slide. I explained why we're not asking for a condition. So we did circulate internally as well as externally. The building department provided that access must be maintained to the property and a building permit must be acquired for the proposed dwelling. There were no comments from bylaw services or emergency and protective services. And Public Works provided that municipal curbside garbage and recycling services will not be provided and no entrance permit will be provided by the municipality. Next slide, please. So based on these factors, staff are of the opinion that the requested minor variance is minor, that it meets the spirit and intent of the official plan and meets the intent of our zoning bylaw, and that the application is appropriate and represents good land use planning. And that concludes my presentation. I am happy to take the recommendations before the committee as described on the screen. Happy to take any questions from members of the committee at this time.
Councillor O'Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Director Martin. Can you tell me why it's not maintained or which end of it is maintained? And I see on the zoning map. Because there are other houses on it and it's only partially maintained?
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor O'Sullivan, there are quite a few areas throughout the municipality where we have roads that are private lanes and where historic development has occurred on unmaintained portions. As for the exact location as to where we stop maintaining, fortunately, our Director of Public Works is here tonight for another matter, but maybe perhaps he can provide a little bit of context as to the history of the area, where that maintenance point ends along Render Road.
Like, is it the end that's closer to Hunter Lane or the other end that's closer to, I'm not sure, 20? Okay, thank you.
So thank you for the question through you, Chair. Public Works doesn't maintain either portion, so the county road is maintained, and that's the only section that's maintained. The other two portions are not maintained by the municipality.
So none of Render Road is maintained?
Not in that section, no.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So how long is Render Road? Does it go from County Road 20 to Hunter Lane? Is that the entire length of it? And none of it is maintained? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just have a brief question. So part of the agreement that'll come to us later maintains that they have to maintain the road? Is that?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. I don't have the details of the agreement in front of me, but there are provisions in regards to their access rights and their use over it. I would imagine that the residents currently along there mutually share in the cost of maintaining access to their properties, similar to many of the other private roads that we have, especially when you think about many of our properties up along the Rideau River, where we have a lot of those private lane accesses, where those are commonly shared with the property owners who have access through those either private lanes or over the portion of the unmaintained. The agreement itself just establishes, because it is new development with the new lot being created, that it just establishes their access rights as well over that portion to the property.
And the agreement, do the other residents along Render Road, are they party to that agreement?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. Not in this, because it is new development in that we're creating a new lot. There was an opportunity to formalize it through that access agreement to give the new property that ability to, one, to meet our planning requirements, which requires frontage. And in lieu of having that frontage, that access agreement solidifies that we recognize that you don't have formal frontage on an open and maintained road, but you do have access over the unmaintained portion. It's harder with the historical development, not just on Render Road and Hunter Lane, but elsewhere, where you have these private lanes or you have like, long established access rates to go back and try to get everyone to enter into it. It's the only time we typically have the opportunity is when we have the development application before us, where we can ask as conditions of development, such as in the severance, to establish more of those types of agreements.
And did I understand that there's, did Emergency and Protective Services sign off on, in terms of EMS access? Is the road sufficient? The current unmaintained road, is it sufficient for emergency, fire?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. I'm not in a position to provide an answer on that. I know that our Emergency and Protective Services were circulated as part of the application and did not, I would believe they did not provide any formalized comments, and they would have been circulated on the severance as well when it came forward. I don't want to speak to what the width or what part of it is being, maintained for access. I don't have that information in front of me, but certainly can provide that after the meeting to the committee, just to give yourself some level of assurance. If there would have been a concern, we would have received that from Emergency and Protective Services to say, hey, we have a concern over being able to access, and that was not flagged for us at the planning level at either application stage.
Okay, thank you. So no comment from Emergency and Protective Services. Great. Any other questions? So no? Okay. The committee will now hear from the applicant, followed by members of the public who wish to speak either for or against the proposal. All persons wishing to address the proposal must ask their questions through the chair. Please be advised that verbal feedback received at this meeting forms part of the public record, and as such, we ask that you please state your name and address prior to addressing the committee with your feedback. Committee members may also ask questions through the chair after the applicant's Are you the applicant or the representative? Did you wish to come forward and say anything in support? Okay, you'll have to come up and
Jesse Jones, 7A Hoy Street, Cardinal. Sorry about that.
can we, sorry to interrupt. Can we get you a mic that works? There's a spare one over here.
Okay, that's much better. Perfect. Jesse Jones, 7A Hoy Street, Cardinal. So just on the topic of emergency services have been triggered and used on the road. I've lived on the road since 2006. My father and my brother and my sister they all have dwellings there. The parent property that's being severed is actually my sister and brother-in-law's property. and then next to them is my parents, and then on the other side is my brother. So emergency services have been triggered in the past, and there was no issue. I also do know that there are regularly scheduled visits. There's an elderly woman that lives on the road and has regular visits from scheduled services, and there's never been an issue. There's plenty of turnaround driveways. The roadway can fit two car widths to pass each other. And yeah, it's never been an issue in the past. Just to provide comment anecdotally to the emergency services.
Thanks. Anything else you'd like to share?
No, I believe that's
Okay.
it.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Any other questions from members of council? Okay. Now we can consider the staff recommendation. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder, and I will read the recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment grant relief for the properties located at part of 871 Render Road, part lot 11, concession 8, former township of Oxford on Rideau, now the municipality of North Grenville, from the following section of Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 50-12 to provide relief from section 6.14 to allow construction of a dwelling on an unopened road allowance described as an unmaintained municipal road allowance as a condition of consent application B-122-24 because the request is minor. The intent of the comprehensive zoning bylaw and the official plan are being maintained, and the variance is within the parameters for dwellings in the rural designation. It's a mouthful. Thank you, Councillor Stracher-Yan, and seconded by Councillor O'Sullivan. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
All right. So now I will look for a mover and a seconder for adjournment of the Committee of Adjustment at 6:53. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, and seconded by Councillor Stracher-Yan. Okay, and we'll adjourn now at 6:53 p.m. And Kira,
This one's working.
There we go.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to council planning meeting on February 18th. I'll now call the meeting to order at 6:56 p.m. Again, before I begin, I'll look to a colleague this time, Councillor O'Sullivan, to read the land acknowledgement.
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. Hello and welcome again. Mayor Peckford sends her regrets this evening and has asked that I bring forward a few community notes on her behalf. This past weekend, the Municipal Centre was once again filled with community spirit during the annual Sweetheart Brunch. This long-standing event continues to bring residents together while raising meaningful support for many local organizations. On behalf of Council, thank you to the Knights of Columbus, volunteers, sponsors, and everyone who attended for helping make this year's event another success. Also on Monday, we saw tremendous support for the Kemptville 73s at their Family Day exhibition game. With one of the largest turnouts in recent memory, the energy in the arena was a reminder of how important local sports are to community pride and connection. Thank you to the players, coaches, volunteers, and fans who continue to support junior hockey here in North Grenville. A special note as well to the many who came to remember local resident Johnny Guy Turmel, a longtime community member whose connection to the 73s and to generations of local families, including Councillor Wilson's, made him a constant and familiar and endearing presence in our community. We extend our condolences to all who are mourning his loss, and I would include myself as one of them. Johnny was a great guy, in more ways than one. I would also like to remind residents that the municipality's Mobility Master Plan survey is officially open. This is an important opportunity for residents to provide feedback on how we move around our community, whether by walking, cycling, driving, or transit, and to help shape transportation planning as North Grenville continues to grow. I encourage everyone with an interest in how we move around North Grenville to seek out the survey on our website and contribute your thoughts. Nominations also remain open for the annual Civic Awards until February 26th. These awards recognize the volunteers, youth leaders, community builders, and organizations who go above and beyond to strengthen our municipality. I strongly encourage residents to visit the municipal website and consider nominating someone who makes a difference. Council is currently considering the municipal budget, and I will note that this is one of the most consequential responsibilities that we carry. Few people in this municipality really understand how the budget process affects our day-to-day lives. From the roads we drive on, the water we use, the services we depend on, and the investments we make for the future. Public consultations will take place on February 24th and 26th, and I encourage everyone to attend and share their perspectives as we work to balance priorities responsibly. Finally, I would encourage residents to attend the Her Heart Matters Women's Health event this Thursday at the Municipal Centre. Raising awareness around prevention and wellness is critically important, and I want to recognize you, Councillor O'Sullivan, for your leadership and dedication in helping bring this important conversation to our community. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to tonight's agenda. Just a note on the agenda, it was amended to include item G1, presentation of the water and wastewater budget, and item I3, staff report regarding Oxford Village subdivision part lot control. So now I'd look for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the agenda as amended? Councillor O'Sullivan, thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Wilson. Thank you. Okay, that the agenda for February 18th be approved as amended. All in favor? Okay, great. Next, declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any members who want to make a declaration of interest? Oh, seeing none. There are no deputations or proclamations this evening, so we're moving on to our presentation, and that's by Director Finley of the water and wastewater budget, solo budget, no impact on tax revenue, simply user fees. I hope you repeat that because most people don't get it, correct?
Excuse me. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And yes, you are correct. As we present the water and wastewater operating capital budgets, we do remind council that this is a user fee system. So it's the users of the water and wastewater system that do pay for its operations and maintenance. So we'll get going through it. I'll take us through the full slide deck as best I can. If there's any questions between myself and Director Wheely, we'll go from there. So first, we just have a bit of an agenda. So we've done some, we'll do some introductions. We'll go through the user rate system, the fee structure, identify a general operating budget, and then get into the details of our capital budget. We'll take a look at the water and wastewater reserves and a current debt schedule. Next slide, please. So some 2025 highlights for the water and sewer division. We are currently and still ongoing through 2025 and into 2026, the expansion at the water pollution control plant. This is the first phase of a two-phase process. We did as well initiate the water wastewater master plan, which we are currently just finalizing. We did install an isolation valve at the Colonnade sanitary pump station, so that does help if there's any maintenance in the wet well, to provide some isolation and some added protection there. Next slide, please. And as we take you through the details of the 2026, some of our 2026 objectives are to continue with the expansion at the water pollution control plant. So that's construction of phase A. We're also anticipating to tender for phase B. Try that again, I apologize. There was pre-approval for County Road 19 sanitary main design. With the completion of the Colonnade sanitary pump station isolation valve, we are proposing to install an isolation valve at the Equinel sanitary pump station. So those are just some of the highlights that we are looking forward to in 2026. Next slide, please. So the slide we provide here just gives an average residential consumption, and again, just to understand how the rates are invoiced to users. So this is 2024 average residential, single residential unit cost. We do apply a monthly base rate that is $47 per month. That's an annual cost of $564. And we do have a two block charge for consumption use. There's $4.01 for the first 12 cubic meters monthly that is used, and then a higher rate of $5.01 for any consumption per month that is over 12 cubic meters. We do note, based on our trending, the average single unit uses approximately 10.855 cubic meters a month and would have an annual cost for consumption of $522.34. So in total, what we do see is the average residential single unit has an annual cost on their water and wastewater bill of just over $1,000. This has been the same rates we've done since our last financial plan and rate study back in 2020. the study was done in 2019, approved early 2020. And what we did want to note is we are proposing to complete a new financial plan in 2026, and we do expect just to see some changes in the rate structure due to inflation costs that we are seeing, debt servicing costs that we're seeing since that financial plan was undertaken about 6 years ago. Next slide, please. So this slide just provides an overview of the operating budget. So our total revenues with no rate increase, which is what we are proposing for 2026. There is no rate increase. We expect a total revenue of just under $4.9 million. But we do want to note that based on our projections, we do anticipate that our total expenses, which includes debt servicing payments, is just over $4.9 million. So there is about $74,705 difference between the two, which means our revenues, we don't anticipate our revenues to cover our total operating expenses. So what we're indicating here is that $74,000 difference, we're looking to transfer from our reserves to finance our operations. And as I mentioned, typically through our financial plans, when we set up our rate structures, we do look that our revenue does cover our total expenses for operations, as well as into our reserves and capital. So that is where we are looking at another plan to see where we sit from here. Next slide, please. So this slide gives just an overview of our capital costs. We do have total expenditures of just over $66 million. I do want to note that $61.6 million of that is between Phase A of the water pollution control plant currently under construction, and we did include the anticipated cost for Phase B of that as we are looking to award that tender probably later on in this year. So the majority of that cost is that expansion project. There is $1.3 million also from the HAF funding, and we're looking at $1.4 million in development charges. So when we take that all into consideration, to be able to fund our proposed capital budget or projects, there is an additional drawdown on our reserves of just over $2 million to help support that. Next slide, please. So this slide for council does identify the number of capital projects that are being proposed. There are 17 in total, so there's quite a list that we are working through. I do want to note that out of the list here, 7 of the projects are carry forward projects from 2025. So there is some funds that were not spent in 2025 that we will look to complete those projects this year. Some of the notable projects, as I mentioned, we are looking at a financial plan. There is the water component here. We'll see a wastewater component on the next slide. We do have a number of maintenance replacements, hydrant replacements, valve replacements, some water main repair, and some water main dead end looping and flushing. So there's a number of linear assets that need some replacements as some of our infrastructure ages, as well as at some of our pump stations. We're looking at some roof repairs, some maple panels, so some equipment pieces for those stations as well. In total, for the water side, we're looking at proposing just over $1.4 million of capital costs. Next slide, please. And the next slide, I should say, that you see here is on the wastewater capital plan. Again, I do know there's quite a list here, 24 projects in total. And I do note that there are 5 that are carry forward projects. We also indicate in here, as you can see, between the 4th and 5th rows there, that we have expansion, the water pollution control plant expansion of Phase A, which should get some substantial completion construction on that, as well as the water pollution control plant expansion for Phase B. We do note this is a multi-year, although we're showing the full cost as part of this budget because we are looking to award it. The construction will not start, we do not anticipate the construction to start until 2027. So it'll be more the award of the project. A couple other projects that we have listed in here is, of course, we're continuing with County Road 43 and some of the construction there. Again, we're doing a number of upgrades, replacements at our facilities such as Bridge Street. There's the VFD and breaker replacement, the HVAC design, the wet well door replacement. We are also looking at, based on some of the preliminary recommendations of our water and wastewater master plan, the expansion design at that sanitary pump station, and that's to help address some of the growth. We also do note at some of our other pump stations, Equinel, there's some isolation valves, some receptacle changes, and a bypass upgrade. Next slide, please. So this slide is intended to show where the reserves are based on the 2024 unaudited numbers that we have. So at the end of 2024, there was just over $8 million in reserves. Based on some of the comments I mentioned before about our operating and our capital, we are looking to draw just over $2 million, $2.18 million from the reserve in order to finance the projects. Next slide, please. And in this slide, you'll see we did want to highlight the water and wastewater debt projects that we have. So we do have that are current, I should say. So we do have the East Quad pumping station, the digester rehabilitation, the water main looping down County Road 19 and County Road 24, and the water pollution control plant expansion, Phase 1, that we have showing right now. In total, between principal and interest, we are looking at just over $1.3 million in debt. And that is the basis of the presentation. Again, happy to answer any questions from council.
Thank you, Director Finley. I just need some of these figures. They're rather large, but our funding is pretty substantial as well. Provincial funding in DCs, the total funding for the water pollution control plant is north of $30 million. Is that correct? If you look at provincial funding in DCs?
Thank you for the comment.
To date, I'm sure we're still looking for some of it. Yeah.
Yes, we do have. So between, I guess these are the items we put in for this year. But in total, for the first phase of the expansion, we have out of the $64 million, there's $21 million from Infrastructure Ontario. The $8 million is kind of the portion that we have for this year. So there's significant costs there. And then again, for the second phase of the expansion, Phase B, it's projected at $35 million. Approximately $25 million of that we were successful from the Ministry of Infrastructure and our Hughes funding from there. So there are some significant costs that we were able to get some funding for.
And earlier on, you characterized Phase A as being 61 million and Phase B as being 5 million?
So for the
total cost is 66 million.
So the first Phase A is $64 million in total.
Okay.
The second Phase B, we anticipate, or the budget that was put in through the funding was $35 million.
Okay. And then later on, I saw a figure of 26 million for Phase A and 25 million for Phase B. I'm trying to parse those two numbers, those two groupings of numbers. I'm not sure what the relationship is.
Thank you for the question. So out of the $64 million for Phase A, we are looking at $26 million of it for this year.
Oh, this year. Okay.
And then again, for the Phase B, we put in the full $35 million shown. However, 25 million of that is being funded through the province.
Right. Okay. All right. Great. I'll go to my council colleagues for some other questions. Councillor O'Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Director Finley. Would you be able to give me the approximate number of users that there are for the water and wastewater? And how many of the, if it's broken down, how many would be residential versus commercial users?
Thank you for the question through Deputy Mayor. We have approximately 6,000 connections. I don't have the exact breakdown between commercial and residential, but we can look at that number and come back to council.
Okay, thank you. If I may, one more question. So is it typical that we have to use a transfer from reserves for operating to meet any shortage that we have, like to transfer 74,000 from reserves to finance operations? Is that a regular occurrence, or is that unusual, or just for this year?
Thank you for the question. I'll let Director Wheeler answer that question for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor O'Sullivan. So no, when we look at our operating revenues and expenses, our user fees should be covering the operations. So part of the user fee structure that we're going to be looking at is also with, I've seen a capital component in with the user fee structure to also help finance the capital portion. So what we're seeing here is now we're in a position to be transferring from reserves. So with the new financial plan in 2026, that's why we spoke to that it's, looking to us going forward that the user fees that we're currently intaking is not enough with the growth that is happening. And plus with that capital component that we need to secure with the expansion. So that's what the financial plan is basically going to entail, is to see the projection of costs and what we need to do with our user fee structure to maintain that. And because if we don't, then when we draw down our reserves, then we'll need to replenish them at some point, and that's our main source.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I just wondered if there was consideration given to a small to moderate increase this year in the fees rather than a big hit later on down the road. That was my question. I'd rather have a small increase each year than a big one that you didn't expect or was a little higher than you expected. Thank you.
I don't think we can assume that it's going to be a big hit down the road necessarily. I think it's unusual from my experience that we've had to draw from reserve to cover operating costs. So it sort of belies the fact that we haven't done a review of the rates since 2020 or 2019. So that's coming. So just to be clear, there's no rate increase this year, during which we will look at the rates again and reformulate them. Hopefully we don't have to cover more than 74,000, which is small. I mean, if in 2027 we have a new water rate, I imagine that rate will contribute to reserves as well as cover any operating shortfall, which right now looks like $75,000, which compared to the overall budget is pretty small. So I think it's a nominal. I think we're looking at nominal increase if any, going down the road rather than some large hit to the pocketbook. Councillor Stark, yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Director Finley. Looking at your long list of projects that you have, so there's a lot of things that, maybe time for repair or replacement and so on. And that makes sense. With your obviously longer list than what you're tackling this year, are you sort of at a steady state where you just have a continuous need for capital projects? Because as you get to the end of your list, whatever that looks like, that you'll have other ones that are coming up for repair, replacement, and so on. So it just tends to be a bit of a churn year over year. Is that what we could anticipate?
Thank you for the question, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, we're seeing two different things happening, and typically, yes, for water and wastewater, there is always additional parts as things age, and especially with a lot of mechanical equipment, there's different failure times when pumps just burn out, and need replacement, as well as the facilities themselves too. We are seeing, and what we are seeing, I guess, in here is some of the stations we like to think that are newer stations. When we look at, the Equinel pump stations and the Colonnade pump stations, are actually 20 years old. And for mechanical equipment, that's reaching a lot of their age limits on when the things need to be replaced, as well as electronics. So we're seeing that, as well as the aging underground infrastructure of our sanitary mains and our water mains in certain areas that are aging, and of course, with that, are failing more often. We're having to do more repairs at this point instead of some of the major capital rehabilitations. So we're seeing those two pieces play out in a bit more of a continuous manner.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'd just like to highlight for the public and the rest of council, if they aren't aware of it already, is the reserve schedule. There's the dedicated water and wastewater reserve, and even though we don't have the 2024 audit finalized yet, the balance as of the end of last year was $8 million. So to Councillor O'Sullivan's concerns, I think we're in good shape, to ride out any bumps along the road going forward. We regularly transfer into that reserve fund once we know what the surplus is. So there'll be another transfer, I imagine, after we get the audit. Is that correct?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the 2024 audit, so when it's complete, it will show the year-end balancing. 2025 still needs to be wrapped up as well. So whether the transfer tos and from projected for 2026, I don't have those numbers.
I guess my question was a little convoluted. We regularly transfer into, depending on the surplus, we transfer into the wastewater reserve fund, or is that's generated any surplus? The wastewater surplus is separate from general surplus, right? So built into the water rates is an understanding that there will be a bit of a surplus at the end that we can contribute to the reserves?
Through you, yes. So when there's an operating surplus and with the capital, then that is the reserve that is used to contribute the surplus to. In 2025, we had budgeted 700,000 surplus in the operating, which was used to help finance the capital portion, as well as with the reserves. And then for 2026 budget, now we're seeing a draw from the reserves to finance not only operating, but the capital. So this is the shift that we're starting to see, that we're communicating now, that just from what we'll expect out of the financial plan, because previously when we would have transfers to, there's starting to be a transfer from, and it's not sustainable.
Still, with a balance of $8 million, we're just transferring $2 million this year.
So in the 2026 budget, yes, just over 2 million transfer from.
Thank you. So, connected, let me just get there to see, what we're looking to do is to receive or pass. We're looking to pass this budget, so I need a resolution. Where would I find that resolution? I'm sorry? Oh, just for information. Okay. We'll get to passing that at a later date once the public has had their crack at it. Thank you very much for that presentation. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to passing the minutes of previous meetings. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder. We're looking at special council meeting of February 2nd, special council meeting of February 3rd, special council meeting of February 4th, and February 9th. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. There we go. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, they're twins, right, on that side? Great. So, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to reports. And the first report I have is the backyard hens licensing bylaw update. Who has the pleasure of delivering that report? Thank you, Director Martin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't have any witty openings this time around in regards to our backyard hen bylaw, but I did take some detailed notes from our discussion back in December, where council was eager to enact the bylaw, but did want a few changes to be made. So those are before you this evening. I don't have a formal slide deck, but I did do my best to do a track changes version of the document so that you could see where those differences are. In particular, I'll just go through. There wasn't a ton of significant changes. The first was adding a definition of what constitutes a rodent-proof container. So with some research, I came up with a proposed definition that gives some sizing. And again, the intent is just to prevent rodents from being able to get into the feed container. So there's no small openings. It's sealable. It provides that level of protection because we do want to try and discourage rodents from taking up within feed bins, which is a reality with keeping of backyard hens. The next item that we looked at amending based on comment from members of council was to provide a list of basic requirements that would be included within an application. So staff put together a list that we didn't want to limit, but typically this is what we would see for an application. We did some research as to what other municipalities ask for. This seem to be the commonalities amongst most of those applications. So we're looking to ensure that they provide a site plan. We want to ensure that they can meet those setback requirements. They're not located within an easement. We're looking at what is their plan for storing manure and bedding, identifying their feed storage, so making sure that they're aware that it is rodent proof. Information related to the hens being housed. Again, it's just more of that piece of, do they understand what our bylaw says and what those regulations are, which is also why we want to include an acknowledgement that they know the limit for the number of hens as per our bylaw, and that they have read our bylaw and they're aware of our rules, as well as a consent piece in regards to if the person who wants to keep chickens isn't necessarily the property owner, but they're a tenant. So that way there is notification to the property owner that this is happening. If we just scroll down, a few other changes under section 12 is we reworked some of the language in regards to the storage of manure to incorporate the storage of bedding, because understanding that when you clean out a hen house with the bedding, the manure is mixed in there. So recognizing that those are two things that you'll have to be mindful of. We also softened the language around vet care just to ensure that we weren't creating something that was extremely restrictive, but it's again promoting good hen health and good animal welfare. So the language has been updated to reflect that requested change. And then the last section that was changed because at the last council meeting, some of the provisions were removed. what that did was it just shifted the sections in regards to the enforcement and penalties under our AMPs. So that was just updated to reflect what the changes were to all the sections moving around. So that was just more of an administrative upkeep piece. But to that end, wasn't a ton of crazy changes that were made, just reflective of the conversation and the requests that were made by members of council that evening to provide more clarity, soften some of the language, as well as providing a little more definition around certain aspects of the bylaw. So if there are any questions from council at this time, I am happy to take them. Thank you.
Councillor Sarkian.
Thank you, through Deputy Mayor, to Director Martin. Pardon me. I appreciate the changes that have been made. I think most of those were my comments that I made at the last meeting. And I would just wanted to say that I appreciate the care that was taken in writing this bylaw to make sure that we're mitigating the challenges that could come from improperly stored food, et cetera, when you're in a neighborhood and so on. Sorry, my voice is scratchy. But I just wanted to say thank you. And I think this is a great bylaw.
I had one question or concern, but first of all, thank you for capturing everything that we talked about, or I suppose Councillor Strachan talked about back in December 10th. And thank you too for highlighting it in red. I think that's something, you know, going forward is very helpful. Section 12, application requirements may include, but are not limited to, the following information. You said you reviewed other backyard hen bylaws, and these were common requirements that you've captured here. Thanks for that detail. But I think we're leaving the door open if we say are not limited to. Like, I mean, what does that mean? That we can just arbitrarily decide there's other requirements going forward? Could we do without that little clause? Just say application requirements may include, and, you know, use this list, this 6-item list, which I think is well researched and is pretty common. But, you know, I don't know, leaving the door open to adding something unnamed as a requirement seems a little unclear.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. The entire provision as it reads, what was adopted was the application requirements, including all supporting documentation and the method of submission, shall be determined by the director. And then we were asked to list those requirements. I mean, you can remove, but are not limited to, but there's still flexibility within the wording that should we need to make a change, or if there's additional information that we might require as, you know, over time, as we start to see more backyard chickens come online, if there's some concerns that are being raised that we're not collecting information on, that we're able to do so without having to necessarily come back and amend the bylaw to say it's not specifically listed, we can't ask for it. But if there's a reasonable rationale at the time as to why we might ask for specific information, then we have that flexibility to do so. Staff are not in the position where we want to make this an onerous process. We want to make it as straightforward as we can, but with some flexibility if we have to change things or if we have to ask for additional information, we have that ability to do so. But again, if it's council's prerogative to remove but are not limited to, there's still flexibility within the policy that gives the director, if there's some changes that need to be made, the director can provide without having to, like, some of those submission requirements without necessarily having to amend this section. And when you read the wording right before the red line addition.
Thanks, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your judgment and your ability to keep the door open for changes at the staff level. But I think, given the amount of debate we've had over backyard chickens, I would think this might be an exception, that if there is something that needs to be changed, that the bylaw does come back to council. I think I personally would prefer to have that ability to add or change or alter this bylaw, given the amount of attention it's had in the community and the way that we've gone over it tooth and nail. So, you know, that phrase, I think, to your point, doesn't really change your ability as director to make changes But I don't know. My personal feeling is that I'd like to see it come back to council for any changes, rather than changes made at the staff level. So that's my feeling, but I don't know if the rest of the council shares that feeling. So what I'm suggesting is that we strike that phrase and then remove the director's determination, so that it would have to come back to council for any requirements.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So what you're asking for is for the section 12 to have but are not limited to stroke taken out, as well as the shall be determined by the director?
Yeah, originally I came to it with just that phrase, but when it was explained by Director Martin that she's reserving the right to make changes to the bylaw without it coming to council, that's the part that I'm finding trouble with.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I just want to be very clear, Deputy Mayor, that I wouldn't be making any changes to the bylaw. It's just the application submission materials. The bylaw itself would, like, unless it's administrative in nature, which the clerk does have some authority to make those changes, staff do not change the provisions of the bylaw. Those would still come back before council. It's just the flexibility of asking for information from residents. What we've found in the past with other bylaws is that if it's very restrictive and there's, whether it's a public health issue that's emerging or we're starting to see some challenges in the community, being able to ask for additional information on the application form itself is important. And that just helps us ensure that we're getting all of the relevant information to maybe mitigate some of those issues. And we did commit to bringing back a report a year later just to give council an update on the progress, which would also include perhaps maybe some of the challenges that we're seeing as well. But it's not meant to say that I have carte blanche, you can just start changing the provisions of the bylaw. I would never want that authority or power. It's just simply that if we needed to ask for additional information on the application form or make changes to the application, that we're not limiting ourselves specifically to just those items. It provides that flexibility on that end, but we're still being very clear to the public, like this is at a minimum what you could be expected to provide to us when you're applying for a license.
That makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. Thanks. So it's just the application process or the application form. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Any other further discussion on this? Well, I'm looking for something clever to say, like henpecked. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Thank you. Boy, I only have to look one way tonight, don't I? Okay. Deb Wilson. So let me read the recommendation that council enact bylaw 17-26, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 96-25, being the bylaw to regulate the keeping of backyard laying hens within the municipality. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll call the question if there's no other discussion. All in favor? Waiting for council. There we go. It's carried. Thank you. Next, Equinel Phase 6A Part Lot Control Renewal. And that again is Director Martin. Thank you, Director Martin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It is the planning road show this evening, although we did allow for the water and sewer budget presentation ahead of all of our items. I say that tongue in cheek. We have a great relationship amongst our senior leadership. Hey, they often like to joke around and complain sometimes about they get stuck in planning meetings, which do sometimes go on when we're dealing with some of the bigger issues. Planning is not a black and white matter. So, but this matter before council this evening is in regard to updating a part lot control bylaw for the Equinel subdivision within Phase 6A. So what happened is that when the bylaw came back, because there were revisions that were being made, Equinel had originally planned for a block of houses, blocks within the subdivision to be townhouse units, but based on their marketing and where their sales were at, they wanted to switch those from townhouse units to single detached houses, still using part lot control to create that subdivision of land. Schedule A was not attached to the bylaw. So the recommendation going back and forth with each other's respective legal teams was let's just pass a new bylaw so then it's clear cut. We're not doing any amendments. It's just here's the new bylaw with the appropriate schedule attached. So all we're doing is just reestablishing something that's already been approved by council just to fix that administrative error of that schedule not being there, which would allow for the units within the blocks within phase A. And I did include a phasing map to show where 6A fits within the overall subdivision. To allow for the subdivision of those townhouse units. And just for reference, the blocks are abut back onto the Settlers Grant subdivision. So they're located on the west side of Equinell Drive.
I wondered if we could throw up the map that's contained in, I guess it would be in part of the attachment. There we go. So it's the green section, right? And above are the two 6B and 6C, I take it. So that boundary hasn't changed. When they create these lots, they're sort of carved in stone.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the question. So this is just this is a key plan. It's a phasing plan. The draft plan of subdivision overly doesn't change. Sometimes we see minor amendments that allow for relotting, but typically they don't change their unit count as what they have draft plan approved. The outline is what the subdivision looks like. For this phase of development, Equinell tends to break things down into sub-phases within their overall approval for how they construct. So the first phase of phase 6 was phase 6A. You can also see as well, there's the hatched red area for phase 2H. That's also part of the approval for the phase 6 edition of the subdivision, but they do have two other subphases. Phase 6B has a subdivision agreement, and we have yet, we're working through detailed design right now with Equinell in regards to phase 6C, but the lots that are impacted by the part lot control bylaw are within phase 6A, which is the green highlighted area.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions from members of council? Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Director Martin. So is this considered a zoning bylaw?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Sullivan. No, it's not a zoning bylaw amendment. There's nothing changing on the zoning side. The part lot control exemption bylaw, what it allows for is that when a plan of subdivision is registered, it has part lot control over it, which means that you cannot reconfigure the lots as they are shown on a draft, like on the plan of subdivision once it's registered. The exception to that rule is this exemption. So when we have blocks, and so blocks typically within a plan of subdivision for development, whether typically multi-residential, when you're building townhouses or semi-detached, you're not drawing the property line right away. You usually wait till the party wall's in, and then you have the survey come out and say, okay, this is where the property line is, because it's really difficult to try and be accurate. In this case, because they did convert it to single detached dwellings, they're still using part lot control to allow for that further subdivision of the lots. So what part lot control exemption does, it's an administrative bylaw in nature, is it allows for this further subdivision of blocks of land within a registered plan of subdivision as a way of ensuring we're not violating the Planning Act once a plan of subdivision is registered. There's a lot of sticky rules when it comes to plans of subdivisions, and Section 51 can be very convoluted. And by no means am I an expert on Section 51, but like part lot control exemption is one way around that to allow for that further exemption.
Okay, thank you. So phase 6C, and there was one other H2, I can't remember, 2H, that back onto Settlers Trail. Is there a way to amend the bylaw, zoning bylaw, I guess, for those lots to ensure that there is the tree buffer along Settlers Trail, which is something that the Health, Wellness, and Fitness Active Transportation Committee is very keen to see.
So the zoning, through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Sullivan, the zoning of the property is irrelevant. We're not opening the zoning bylaw up to allow for part lot control exemption, and it's not germane to what that's trying to achieve. If council desires to open up the zoning amendment bylaw, that would be something that would have to be directed by the council table to look at that. I would have a little concern over doing so in that they have the approvals and they've designed their subdivision to the point where it's based on the zoning that they requested and that was approved at council at the time. So I'd be a little hesitant to say that you should go and to start changing their zoning requirements when that's what was approved originally when phase 6 came forward. And again, they're designing their existing development, including their detailed design, lot configurations, grading and drainage, all based on the zoning that's in place today.
Okay, thank you. Do you know when phase 6C was approved? Roughly?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I would have to go back to look at the draft plan approval. It was quite a few years ago. I want to say around 21, 22 when phase 6 came forward. And then they've been working through their phasing, but I can look at getting the dates and perhaps actually if there is a date on the surveyor certificate, perhaps. I just can't scroll down. I might give you an idea of 2023. Yeah. So the plan of subdivision was registered in 2023.
Okay, thank you. Do you think the developer would be open to hearing what council has desired about tree buffering?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I mean, it's certainly a conversation that we can raise with them. We are going through detailed design on various aspects of the subdivision. We can certainly raise it with them, but unless there's clear direction, I'm not really certain what I'm bringing back to them other than to make them aware of requests that have come through other avenues at the council table.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding 6A? No? Once again, I'm looking for a mover and seconder. This time I'll cast my eyes that way. So moved by Councillor O'Sullivan and seconded by Councillor Wilson. Thank you very much. I'll read the recommendation. I should have read it before you moved and seconded, but thank you for the confidence. That council enact and approve bylaw 18-26 being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 62-25 and to amend bylaw 14-25 being a bylaw to exempt certain lands from part lot control within phase 6A of the Equinell subdivision. I'll ask for the vote. Okay, it's carried. Thank you very much. And we will continue with the Director Martin show, I believe. The next one is regarding Oxford Village subdivision part lot control.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Another administrative matter where so we've passed a previous bylaw already to allow for part lot control to move forward for the various blocks within the Oxford Village subdivision. When Oxford Village, working with Mattamy, was doing their lot layouts, they discovered that the original bylaw identified 17 units over 2 blocks when in fact it's 22. They were able to develop a few more in how they configured their townhouse block units. The overall approval number for the Oxford Village subdivision development is 398 residential units. So it doesn't really specify that, it has to be so many townhouse units versus singles. So they have been able to play around a little bit with that configuration. So to that end, a new bylaw is being passed just for 2 blocks within the subdivision, being blocks 113 and 114, just to recognize the change in unit count and just update the legal description. So it's just one of those administrative matters where it's just much simpler to pass a clean bylaw than it is to go back and amend the previous bylaw passed by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martin. Any questions from council? No? Okay, well, this time I will read the recommendation before asking for a mover and a seconder. That council enact bylaw 25-26 being a bylaw to lift park lot control on blocks 113 and 114 within the Oxford Village subdivision. Looking for a mover for that. Thank you, Councillor Strakoyan. And seconded by, thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. If there's no other discussion, or there wasn't a discussion, but if there isn't any discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is correspondence, and I've spoken to the mayor who brought this item to be dealt with today, and she's asking if it could be deferred. If there's no objection, I think we'll defer this to the next opportunity so that Mayor Pefford can speak to this item. There are no notices of motions for consideration at this meeting or at future meetings, unless someone has a notice of motion tonight. No. There are no petitions or written communications from the public, and there's no miscellaneous or unfinished business. So are there any questions from the media or public? Did we get any questions, Ms. Remming? No email questions? Okay. So we're on to the confirmation bylaw. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for confirmation bylaw. Councillor Wilson, Councillor O'Sullivan, and that the bylaw is attached to this agenda be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. All in favor? And we're looking to adjourn at 7:53, moved by Councillor Strakoyan and seconded by Councillor Wilson. Thank you very much. So we're adjourned at 7:53. Thank you.